I never thought the day would come when my own father and my own sister would stand in front of me with this coldness in their eyes, pointing fingers at me as if I were a stranger who had walked into their lives just to destroy everything they had built. But that's exactly what happened, and the moment is burned into my brain like a brand. My father's voice trembled with frustration as he said, "You ruined the business." And my sister, who once used to cling to me like I was her protector, looked at me with pure disappointment and whispered, "It's all your fault." I remember feeling something inside me collapse, like the floor had vanished beneath my feet. I had taken every step, every decision, with the intention of helping them, of saving what my father spent decades building. But they didn't want the truth, they wanted someone to blame, and apparently, that someone had to be me. Tell me, was I wrong for what I did? Or was I the only one who still cared enough to try to hold everything together? It all started way before the accusations, before the shouting matches, before I found the one thing that changed everything. Looking back, the warning signs were always there, but I was too loyal, too hopeful, too stupid to see them. I grew up believing that family comes before everything else. My father hammered that into us like scripture, like a rule of nature. Family first. Everything else comes and goes. But what he never realized, and what I learned the hard way, is that family can also be the one thing that destroys you the most. Our family business wasn't some huge corporation. It was our small but thriving chain of hardware stores, the kind that locals trusted for years. My father started it from scratch. He always said it was his third child, and honestly, he treated it that way, sometimes even better than us. I spent most of my teenage years working there after school, learning inventory, customer service, logistics, everything. Meanwhile, my sister, Lena, had other dreams. She wanted to travel, study fashion, anything except hardware and lumber. Dad loved me for wanting to step in one day and run things, but he adored her for being creative and special, and I didn't resent her for it, not then. She was my little sister. I wanted her to fly wherever she wanted. But the world doesn't care what you want, and life rarely works out the way you picture it. When Dad's health started declining 2 years ago, things changed fast. He wasn't the same man. He was tired, irritable, overwhelmed, and he turned to me like I was his lifeline. "You're the responsible one," he kept saying. "You're the one who can handle things." I wanted to feel proud, I really did. Instead, all I felt was pressure to keep the business running, keep my father calm, keep my sister included, keep everything together like some sort of human glue. And that's where everything began spiraling. Dad made a decision that, in hindsight, was the biggest mistake he could have made. He put both me and Lena on equal ownership of the business, 50-50. Equal power, equal responsibility, equal say. On paper, it was fair. In reality, it was chaos. Because Lena didn't want to run the business. She wanted control. She wanted money. She wanted validation. And Dad kept giving it to her, even when she didn't earn it. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could mentor her, teach her, guide her. Instead, she turned every piece of advice into an attack. Every suggestion became an argument. Every decision I made became me trying to boss her around. Still, things weren't completely broken yet. Not until the numbers started slipping. One day, while going through quarterly reports, I noticed something strange. Expenses had risen, way more than usual. And some of the suppliers we had long-term deals with suddenly stopped giving us their usual discounts. When I tried to call them, they either didn't pick up or dodged my questions. I remember telling Dad about it, expecting him to be concerned. Instead, he brushed me off like I was being paranoid. "Business goes up and down," he muttered. "Don't overthink everything." But I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The decline wasn't random. It was too specific, too patterned. Then came the incident that pushed everything over the edge. One of our stores, the one that had always performed the best, suddenly had a huge loss, inventory missing, cash discrepancies. A supplier invoiced triple the usual amount. When I looked into it, the manager told me, "Your sister approved it." and my heart dropped. Lena had taken over that branch temporarily for management experience, something Dad insisted she do, and now everything was falling apart. I confronted her, calmly at first, asking what happened. She immediately got defensive, then angry, then full-blown hysterical. "Why do you always think everything is my fault?" she shouted. "Dad's right, you act like you're perfect." Perfect. Yeah, if only she knew how many nights I spent awake, worrying about everything, trying to fix things before Dad even found out they were broken. But no matter what she said, the numbers didn't lie. Something was happening under her watch, and I needed answers. Days later, I caught one of the employees loading boxes into a truck that didn't belong to any supplier or delivery service we used. When I confronted him, he panicked. He stuttered, tried to make excuses, then eventually admitted he was told to get rid of old stock. But the stock wasn't old. It was new, as in worth a lot of money. I asked him who told him to do it. He looked terrified, but eventually whispered, "Your sister." My stomach turned. I confronted her again, and again she denied everything. I thought Dad would finally take my concerns seriously when I laid out the evidence. Instead, he blew up at me like I insulted him personally. "Stop attacking your sister!" he shouted. "She's trying. You always want to run the show." Dad's health got worse after that argument. Stress wasn't good for him, and he blamed me for causing it. Soon, he stopped listening to anything I said, and whenever he needed comfort, he went to Lena, not me. She whispered things to him, things I never heard but always seemed to come back to bite me. Suddenly Dad was cold to me, suspicious, distant. I felt my relationship with both of them slipping through my fingers. Then the worst happened. A huge financial blow hit the business. An error, except it wasn't an error. A transfer of funds was made to an outside contractor. The amount, enough to cripple us. Enough to push the business into debt. Enough to destroy everything Dad had worked for. And the transfer was approved under my name, my signature. Except it wasn't my signature. I knew, instantly, that someone had forged my approval. I ran to Dad, breathless, panicked, desperate for him to believe me. He didn't. He just looked at me with disappointment, so deep it felt like he'd slapped me. "How could you be so careless?" he murmured. "I trusted you. I tried to defend myself. I tried to explain, but he didn't want to hear it. And Lena stood behind him, tears in her eyes, fake tears, saying she couldn't believe I would do something so reckless. That's when everything turned against me. Dad told me to take a step back from the business. Just until things stabilize. But I knew what that meant. He didn't trust me anymore. He believed I was the one who destroyed the company's finances. He believed I betrayed him. And Lena, she looked satisfied, a little too satisfied. But the worst blow came later that night, when I overheard them talking in the living room. Dad said, "He ruined everything." And Lena whispered, "I tried to warn you, Dad. He wants control. He always has." Hearing that broke something inside me, because I finally realized something I had spent my whole life avoiding. My sister wasn't naive. She wasn't irresponsible. She wasn't overwhelmed. She was doing this on purpose, and Dad refused to see it. The business went downhill fast after that. Debts piled up. Suppliers refused to work with us. Customers lost trust. Dad blamed me for all of it, even after I was no longer involved. "If you hadn't made that transfer, if you hadn't screwed everything up," whine. It was like he had erased every good thing I had ever done. I tried to distance myself emotionally, but how can you detach from your own family? Every day felt like drowning, and every attempt to explain myself only pushed them further away. Until the day I found something. Something that changed everything. Something that proved I wasn't the villain. But before I tell you what I discovered, I want to ask you something directly, because maybe I'm not seeing things clearly, maybe I'm biased, maybe I'm too close to the situation. So that's the situation I was in, standing in the ruins of my father's trust and my sister's betrayal, wondering how everything fell apart so fast. And before I tell you what happened next, before I reveal what I found and how it changed everything, I want you to pause for a moment and tell me what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have walked away? Fought back. Exposed them? Stayed quiet? Comment below and tell me honestly. When I finally tell you what I discovered, you might think I'm exaggerating, or that this sounds like something out of a movie. But I swear on everything I have left that what I found not only proved my innocence, it revealed a betrayal so deep it made every fight, every accusation, every cold look suddenly make sense. And the moment I put all the pieces together, something inside me hardened. I realized that the people I had spent my entire life trying to protect were the same people who had been tearing me apart behind my back. But let me take you back to the exact moment when everything changed, when I stumbled onto the truth in the most unexpected way. After Dad removed me from the business, I was furious, heartbroken, embarrassed, everything at once. But I wasn't ready to walk away, not yet. Something in my gut wouldn't let me leave. I kept feeling like something was wrong, like there was a missing piece no one else was looking for. So even though Dad told me not to come around, I kept showing up at odd hours. Early morning, late at night, quiet times when no one would see me. I told myself I was checking inventory, or just making sure the stores were okay. But honestly, I was searching for the truth. And then one night, close to midnight, something strange happened. I walked into the main office and noticed a faint light under the door. Someone was inside. At that hour, only 2 people ever had access: me and Lena. My heart started pounding. I quietly approached, not wanting to start a fight. But the moment I pushed the door open, everything froze. There was Lena, sitting at Dad's desk, the entire drawer pulled open. Our company financial folders spread out, and her laptop plugged into the system, like she was transferring files. She jumped up immediately when she saw me, eyes wide like she'd been caught stealing, which she had. "What are you doing here?" she snapped. "Dad said you're not supposed to be here." But I ignored her question and asked my own. "What are you doing?" she stammered. Then she slammed her laptop shut so fast it nearly ripped the cord out. She clutched it to her chest and said, "Just cleaning things up." Cleaning what? At midnight, with the financial drawer open, with Dad's passcode logged in on the desktop, something felt wrong, very wrong. But she stormed past me before I could ask anything else, muttering insults as she left. And when I looked back at the drawer, at the folders she'd been going through, I noticed one of them sticking out, labeled Supplier Contracts Renewal 2023. It was slightly torn at the corner, like she had yanked it earlier. I opened it, and there it was, the missing piece. Or at least the start of it. Inside the folder were multiple printed emails between suppliers and someone using the business email under the name Operations Director, a position that didn't exist in our company, and the signature under every email was my name. Except I never wrote them. I never even saw them. Someone created a separate email account using my name. I felt a chill go down my spine. But that wasn't the worst of it. The emails contained agreements with higher-priced suppliers. Agreements that forced us to buy materials at double the cost. Agreements that looked like I willingly sabotaged our expenses. But the writing style wasn't mine. The language wasn't mine. And in some emails, there were grammatical mistakes I'd never make. Someone was pretending to be me. Someone had been setting me up for months, and the number, one person with access to that folder, to that drawer, was Lena. My hands were shaking. I took pictures of everything with my phone, then carefully put the papers back. I didn't want her to know yet, not until I had more. Over the next 2 weeks, I became obsessed. I searched deeper, quietly. I checked store cameras, transaction logs, supplier calls, everything. And every trail pointed to one person, not me, not Dad, Lena. She'd contacted suppliers behind my back, approved shady purchases, paid inflated invoices, and worst of all, she had been secretly redirecting stock to a separate warehouse. A warehouse listed under a company name that wasn't ours. A company name I'd never heard before, L&M Home Supplies. And the listed owner, my sister, Lena. My stomach twisted into a knot so tight I thought I'd throw up. Everything suddenly connected. The missing inventory, the rising expenses, the forged transfers. The mysterious payments she was stealing from us. From Dad. From the family business she pretended to care so much about. But for what? Why? The answer came sooner than I expected. One night I followed her. I know how creepy that sounds, but I didn't care anymore. I needed proof. I needed the truth, no matter how ugly. She drove across town to an industrial area and into a small warehouse, one with its sign turned off. I parked down the block, far enough to not be seen, and watched her walk inside confidently like she owned the place. After she went in, I snuck closer, and through a small side window, I saw something that made my blood boil. Boxes. Hundreds of boxes. Oh, your boxes. Our store logo. Our stock. Our products. Neatly stacked. Fresh. Untouched. And there she was, talking to two men, buyers. She was selling our merchandise to someone else. For pure profit. Money that never reached our accounts. Money we lost while the business collapsed. Money she made by framing me. And I heard one sentence that shattered the last piece of hope I had for her. My dad still thinks my brother ruined the business. She laughed. He's so easy to manipulate. My jaw clenched so hard I thought my teeth would crack. She didn't just betray us, she enjoyed it. She bragged about it, and Dad believed her, loved her, defended her, while I became the villain she created. I left before she saw me, shaking with rage, heartbreak, and a sense of betrayal that I can't even put into words. But I wasn't done, not even close. I spent the next week gathering everything: emails, contracts, recorded calls, video footage, photos of the warehouse, purchase orders, screenshots, every damn thing I could get my hands on. And then something happened that pushed everything into motion faster than I planned. Dad called a family meeting, except it wasn't a meeting. It was an ambush. When I walked in, he was furious. Lena sat beside him like a saint, fake tears ready to fall. Dad slammed a folder on the table. I got another notice, he said. The business is going under. Suppliers are cutting ties. And your sister found more errors under your name. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was the only reaction that kept me from screaming. Are you serious? I said. You still believe her. That set him off, he yelled. He accused. He said things I never imagined hearing from my own father. You destroyed my life's work. You betrayed this family. How could you do this? And the whole time, Lena watched silently, pretending to be heartbroken, acting like she wasn't the one stabbing us from the inside. When he finally stopped yelling, he looked at me and said, "You owe us the truth. Why did you do it?" And that's when everything inside me snapped. All the pain, the betrayal, the anger, it all boiled over. I pulled out my phone, opened the folder labeled TRUH, and placed it on the table. You want the truth? I said coldly. Here it is. I showed him the forged emails, the fake contracts, the supplier messages, the footage of the warehouse, the receipts, the business registration of L&M Home Supplies, and finally the video of Lena selling our inventory. Dad's face changed slowly, like he was thawing from a block of ice. Shock, confusion, denial, dread, and Lena, her mask cracked instantly. This is fake, she shrieked. He edited it? He's lying. But Dad wasn't listening anymore. He was staring at the video of her laughing about manipulating him. The moment he heard her say, "My dad still thinks my brother ruined the business," something broke inside him. He looked like someone had punched him in the soul. Lena, he whispered. Tell me this isn't real. She tried. She cried. She screamed. She lied. Every excuse. Every manipulation. Every tactic she'd used on him before. But this time, it didn't work. Not anymore. Dad stood up so slowly it made the room feel heavy. He looked at her with so much pain that even I felt it. You did this, he said quietly. To your own family. She lost it. She turned on me like a wild animal, screaming that I had ruined her life, that I always wanted to be the favorite, that she deserved the business more than me because she had dreams, and I never let her live. It was the first time she finally revealed her true self in front of Dad, and he saw it all. Every dark corner, every selfish motive, every lie. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. Dad sat down, defeated. He buried his face in his hands and sobbed. I had never seen him cry before. Not even once in my entire life. And I didn't know what to say. How do you comfort someone who just realized they raised their own betrayer? After a long silence, he looked at me with red, swollen eyes. I am so sorry, he whispered. I should have listened to you. I should have trusted you. Hearing that hurt more than all the accusations combined, because it was too late, way too late. The damage was done. The business was drowning. The trust was broken. Our family was shattered. Over the next few weeks, everything unfolded publicly. Dad confronted suppliers. He reopened failed accounts. He exposed Lena's fraudulent purchases. And the police got involved, not by my choice, but because one supplier filed a complaint. Lena disappeared for days, then weeks. When she finally resurfaced, she blamed us for ruining her future, as if we hadn't watched her destroy everything with her own hands. Dad tried to patch things up with me. He apologized every day. He begged me to help him save what was left of the business. But I had already made my choice. I was done sacrificing myself for people who didn't value me. I told him I would help stabilize things, clear my name, and restore the company's reputation, but after that, I wanted out. He cried again when I said that. But for once, I didn't soften. I couldn't. I had lost too much already. Eventually, after months of hard work, I did restore the business. Not fully, but enough to save it from collapse. When it was steady again, I signed over my share to Dad and walked away. He begged me to stay. But I couldn't be tied to the same place that nearly destroyed me. I needed a life that was mine, not one defined by my sister's jealousy or my father's blind favoritism. And now, with time past and wounds slowly healing, I still ask myself the same question I asked you in the beginning. Was I wrong? Was I wrong for exposing the truth? Was I wrong for walking away? Was I wrong for giving up on a family that had already given up on me? I did what I had to do. For myself. For my sanity. For the future I deserved. But I'm still curious. Tell me what you think. And if you were in my place, would you have done the same thing? Like this video if you were on my side. Subscribe for more stories like this. And share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments below.